Companies, if you're AT&T or Novartis or the South Korean concern, and you're getting money to Michael Cohen, the president's lawyer, why are you doing that? Are you trying to buy influence? You're just trying to maybe get the future president's attention when he was just a candidate running for president? What? I mean, people ask questions. So they want to know. It might not even be anything sinister, but this idea that it could be pay to play has some cynics out there wondering what else is there out there from other companies or other favors back and forth that we don't know about. The Washington Examiner commentary writer Emily Jashinsky here, Independent Women's Forum senior fellow Patrice Onwuka. Patrice, I ended with you, so maybe help me out with, is this as big a deal as it made to be? When the revelations came first about AT&T, so one thing, and then Novartis came in. There might be others, I don't know. This shouldn't be startling. I mean, I understand how this process works, but they're looking at how it timed to the campaign and favors granted those during the campaign, if any. What do you make of this, and how damaging could it be?
I mean, if it's damaging, it's only for those companies, but it really isn't. I mean,
but did the companies do anything wrong? I don't think they technically did anything wrong. The companies.
I don't think they did. I mean, remember, a lot of these companies did not expect candidate Trump to win the election, so they were scrambling because they had already lined up their cadre of lawyers and lobbyists who were well plugged into a potential Clinton administration.
Right.
So they were going to turn to whomever would seem to have some sort of access to the inner circle of President Trump. And remember, he was about draining the swamp, so he wasn't going to be connected to a lot of the D.C. lobbyists that these companies had access to.
You know, there's a back and forth as to whether any Russian company was giving or funneling money, whatever the term would be, to Michael Cohen. Might have been a different Cohen. We don't know quite the story there. But the inference there would be that foreign entities were trying to exact favors. And that does get into a slippery possible criminal issue here. Leaving that aside, because we simply don't know, is this more about Michael Cohen, or is this about the way business is done in this country with a wink and a nod and you buy influence and a seat at the table? Might be a case of AT&T trying to extract favor, on a deal that has a Time Warner. It would not be the first time something like this was done. Would not be illegal if this were done, but your sense?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. You know, this is very much about the way things are done in this country, which is kind of a sad commentary on the way things are done in this country. So to your earlier question to Patrice about did they do anything wrong, legally it doesn't seem as though there were any boundaries crossed, but it depends on what you mean by if they did anything wrong. If you think pay to play, if you think the swamp that is just full of lobbyists is wrong, and that's why you voted for Donald Trump, this does get to be a little bit more harmful. I mean, this is the importation of the swamp into Washington. Or not, you don't have to import it, actually. It's already here. But for a president who promised not to do that, promised to drain the swamp, to have his orbit trafficking in these types of deals, it's very much conventional. So it depends on what you think is wrong ethically. I think a lot of people in the president's base would certainly be upset by this if they saw the Clinton administration doing it.
Well, and also, Patrice, there's a confusion as to when a lot of these payments were made, or a lot of these overtures on the part of, let's say, for example, Novartis, the big biotech and drug concern, were made. And I think, to your point, a lot of it has to do with timing, where very few thought Donald Trump would win the election. Once he did, or once it looked like he was well on his way, then all of a sudden run to get a seat at the table. But it does have a swampish feel to it. You know?
It does. I mean, what's interesting is when they sat down with their meeting for Cohen for the first time, they realized that he didn't have the access or couldn't give them what they were looking for. However, I guess he was smart enough to lock in a deal where he was going to still continue to get $100,000 payments every month, despite not providing them any other service beyond that first meeting. So, I give Cohen credit for being an entrepreneur in this situation.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah. Emily, real quick, do you think this has any lasting kind of residual effect here? I guess the Russian thing, which might not be true at all and might be a different Cohen, so there's no way of judging, that I could see could. This other stuff domestically, sad as it is, I'm not saying sad, I just know how the business world works, there might not be a there. It might shock people. The old Casa de Blanca thing of the gambling, I'm shocked, So it might, beyond that, I don't know if it will have any effect. You?
No, I mean, this is profoundly conventional. I think for a lot of people, it'll be disappointing coming from someone in the orbit of a president who promised to drain the swamp and was adamant about that. But no, I think you're right. There's really nothing lasting, unless, of course, things turn out to be connected to Russia, and the Russia billionaire that was backing one of the companies that was alleged to have hired Cohen. Yeah, I mean, that's where things could get interesting here. But this is business as usual here in Washington, D.C.
You're both too young to be so jaded. What is it with you? All right, leave it to me to do the jaded thing. Ladies, thank you both very, very much.